What's up, guys? Thanks for watching my YouTube channel and checking out this video. And I hope you guys are as excited about this information as I was to finally find a solution. Because I'm telling you what, as a 7-string guitarist, there's nothing more frustrating than putting on a capo and finding out that no matter what you use, it doesn't work the way that it should. So let me explain this. I have been trying to find a capo for roughly about 3 years. And I've tried everything under the sun, including the ones from my own guitar's manufacturer. And they still all just have some degree of leaving the instrument out of tune and not working quite right. I've tried novelty, cheap capos. I've tried really expensive, high-performance capos. And all of them seem to have one flaw or another. So let me talk about that for just a second, because if you're new to guitar and particularly new to 7-string, this all might be a mystery to you, and it would be crazy for me to not tell you why this stuff matters the way that it does. So here's the thing. When you're buying a capo, there are several things that you have to take into account, and specifically about 4. And 2 of them specifically are really only issues that you're going to find on a 7-string guitar for the most part. All right, so the first thing, your radius has got to be right. So the fretboard has a radius to it. Now, what a radius is, if you didn't know, is when they make a fretboard, the top of it is curved. And that has to do with the actual radius that literally happens at the top part of a circle. Okay, so, you know, a 9.5-inch radius would be 9.5, so forth. And that's how they get that curvature to the fretboard to be right. So if you have a radius fretboard that, let's say the fretboard is a 12-inch radius, okay? And you take a 12-inch radius fretboard and you stick a 15-inch radius capo on it, it may work okay, but it's going to have some buzzing potentially in certain spots depending on if there's enough pressure to overcome it. And so you got to make sure that your radius is correct. That's the first thing. The second thing is you've got to take into account how hard the capo is squeezing. For example, I use a Kaiser capo for guitar repair. If I have an acoustic guitar in front of me and I have to take the pins out, I use the Kaiser to keep the thing together so that because basically if I take the strings off and don't have some sort of a capo there, the strings will literally get tangled up at the headstock and become kind of a nightmare. So I use a Kaiser to keep them organized and straight. That's all I use a Kaiser for. They squeeze way too hard, especially for a 7-string electric guitar where I'm not using rebar strings. So the Kaiser for me was a huge letdown because it was like as soon as it hit the guitar strings, I could hear that my guitar went way out of tune. So that's one thing you have to keep into consideration is tension that is applied. The next thing, which is getting into like a 7-string exclusive territory, is it wide enough? Yeah. One of my favorite capos, if not my favorite capo on the face of the earth, actually, which is a G7 capo. Their Performance 3 capos are amazing, and I can't say enough good things about them, but they just don't get across the fretboard. By the time we're at the 3rd fret, those suckers barely have hold of that high E string, and by the 4th fret, they just flat out miss it. They're just not wide enough to support use on a 7-string guitar, and it's a huge bummer for me to the point where I actually chatted with some people from the company because I can't tell you how much I love that capo. The last thing for a 7-string specifically, and I've got a capo I had the issue with here in front of me because it is such an unusual thing to see, and I've never seen this issue happen on a 6-string guitar, but I have seen it on the 7s quite frequently, and that is this. So this is a Shub capo, which, by the way, Shub capos are amazing, and they're worth every penny. They're not expensive. They're durable. They last. And I know a lot of guys that use them and swear by them. The back here, I don't know how well you guys can see this, but the back where it clamps onto the back of the neck, it is designed to essentially cradle the shape of a 6-string guitar neck from the back. But on a 7-string guitar, it only makes contact on this far corner. And that causes the capo to have a huge influence to the treble strings. Or if you put it on upside down, it'd be the bass strings. And it's so much influence in that direction that it actually ends up biting down so hard on the treble strings that literally you end up having to do some pretty severe tuning adjustments. And meanwhile, your bass strings are actually buzzing because they're not getting the pressure that they need. So this capo actually didn't work at all on a 7-string, and this is the wider model, which is the C3K. This was my second to last capo attempt, and I was so sure this was going to work, and it didn't. So anyways, without further ado, I'm telling you what, this was the winner chicken dinner, not to sound corny, but Thalia Capos. This was my final thing. I've been avoiding this capo for, well, as long as I've known about them, which has been quite a number of years now. I've been avoiding them just simply because of the price tag. I am usually not one to always go throwing money into things like that. And I'm not a very big capo guy. I've been playing since I was 6, and just within the last 7 years have been buying capos. It's just not been my cup of tea. So dropping, $80 on a capo isn't exactly a high priority on my list. So anyways, though, this hits on every positive point that a 7-string guitarist could possibly want. The radius, well, they come with these pads, so you can literally interchange it to the right thing, which blew my mind because there's a 16-inch radius in here in these pad things, and the guitar I use happens to be a 16. So it's the only capo I've actually found that actually uses the radius or has the radius that my specific guitar has. That's pretty huge. So the other thing is the back of this is not so curved that it actually causes the capo to dip toward the treble strings. So that was a huge plus too. It does cover all of the strings, another huge plus. So all of the big things that all of the other manufacturers really seem to struggle with is something that this capo just does not struggle with. Now, there is a runner-up for me that I've been using for a couple of years, and it's manageable on a budget for you guys, and that is the D'Addario capo. It does have a slight influence with this thing tipping, but it's not nearly as bad as like the Shub was. And it does cover all the strings. Again, a huge positive, and it's really easy to open up and put on the neck. But you have to be careful with both of these for two different things, because they both suffer from one thing that kind of bothers me a little bit, and that is if you don't have, when you go to put these on, if the strings are not already in contact with it when you let go, it has a tendency to try and pull the B string off of its place a little bit towards, it's actually pulling it towards the 6th string. So it'll close in your string distance on those two strings. This one, I found it to be similar in the same way, and this one does have a little bit of a learning curve to it because there is a lot of tension actually in this sucker, which is why the G7 is still my favorite capo, but the G7 doesn't even work on a 7-string guitar, and I'm not a 6-string guitarist. Haven't been since 2004. So this capo, without a doubt, does the job. And when you put this on, you put it on, get the strings against it so that they're straight, and then you just let go of the back, and lo and behold, you will find out that this sucker is going to win like no tomorrow. No tuning ins, like no need to retune, no tuning issues, none of that stuff. It is solid as a rock and absolutely incredible. So go grab this. You'll be so happy you did, I promise. Thalia Capos, go grab one.